So I've just completed the boys trigger warning for the second time, this time on PSVR2. So I'm going to give you my thoughts on the PSVR2 version. I have completed it before on the Quest 3 for a review I did. Gameplay aside, like talking about just like what I think of the game itself, technically the Quest 3 was a real struggle to get through because of stuttering frame rates, which I technically proved in that video what was going on and the use of asynchronous space warp. But the developers have assured me that the Quest 3 version has now been fixed, so the issues have been addressed. I haven't checked it out, I haven't really had time, unfortunately. I've just been solely doing the PSVR2 version, which has taken me 3 hours to get through, as I believe on Quest it took me 4.5 hours to get through. So I would still use 4.5 hours as like a baseline time, even though they stated 10. I don't know how they got 10, honestly, but yeah, 4 hours, 4 to 5 hours I think is about right for your first playthrough. But as I said, today's video is all about the PSVR2 version, and it is an upgrade, which is really good news. But there was also one exception, which I'm going to get into because I had to basically communicate and work with the developers to figure out what the problem was. But let's lay some foundations of what the boys trigger warning is all about. The boys trigger warning, if you don't know, is developed by Arvor. Now Arvor are best known, at least for me, because I've been in VR for such a long time, with the Pixel Rip series. These are fantastic games that I highly recommend everyone check out, and I think the developers have done a really good job by getting real voice actors, or at least one voice actor, into the boys trigger warning, and that's actor Lax Alonso doing the voice of Mother's Milk. There's another actor, I don't know his name, but he's definitely not Carl Urban doing Billy Butcher, but to be honest, you would not know it isn't Carl Urban doing the voice. It's really well done.
That shit goes wrong, it's on you.
What is that?
This is his last chance, love.
And it's important just to touch on the voice acting, because these are the two guys that you're predominantly going to be talking to throughout this game. So every time you go back to the main like base or hub, which is actually like a derelict bowling alley, these are the guys that are going to be telling you what's going on and what to do next. So I'm really glad that the voice acting is of really good quality. The story of the game is just a really good old-fashioned story of revenge. Basically, you and your family are on a day out in Vaultland. It all goes terribly wrong. You're on your deathbed. You're about to die, and the only way that you are going to survive is by taking Temp V, and you end up getting some suit powers. They've done a really good job of bringing the boys universe to VR in the sense of there's a lot of violence, there's a lot of swearing, more so than any other game I can think of, using the C word, which is just a word I don't think you rarely hear in video games. And this is also helped by the inclusion of Soldier Boy, who turns up now and again, and he's honestly pretty funny to listen to. And the gameplay is a mixture of primarily sneaking about Vault Tower. There's some minor puzzling, and I say minor, it's basically going up to somewhere, finding a code, inputting the code, grabbing the key cards, and hacking terminals. But if you're like me, and this is probably due to playing it again, I end up doing just a lot of killing. The only reason I snuck up on anyone is because I wanted to just snap their neck. For me, the second time through was a lot more violent than the first time through. And one of the powers you'll get to use the most is telekinesis. And I've got to say, it is pretty cool to use. Basically, you can just open vents and pick up items by holding the trigger and then just gesturing with your wrist. And it really works in VR. You know, it's something that you can't do on a flat screen, where you just point at something, hold trigger, and then just flick your hand back and it opens up. So that's pretty cool. You'll also be teleporting around through lots of vents to get to different areas, as I said, to find the key cards. And it's not always straightforward, you know. I definitely was a lot quicker the second time through, but the first time I played it, I got stuck a few times trying to figure out where to go. So it's pretty good to know that it's not just a very easy game from start to finish. And then as you play the game, you unlock extra powers, which I'm sure if any of you are interested in this game have seen it in the trailers. One of the powers, you grow like crystals off your hands, which you can use to deflect bullets and slice up people. Then you got the power of invisibility, which to be honest, I rarely used. You are forced to use it a couple of times, but naturally I never really used it. And then about halfway through the game, you get the laser vision, which is super cool. I mean, it was cool on Quest 3, but it's super cool on PSVR 2 because you get to use eye tracking with the lasers. And honestly, as soon as I got this power, it's the only power I wanted to use all the time. As you go through the game, you have to collect Temp V to keep using your powers, because you'll just burn through the Temp V otherwise. You'll also be collecting intel. To be honest, I never really looked at this intel until I got on PSVR2. And surprisingly, there is a lot of the lore from the boys in the game. It's kind of everywhere actually, but the thing is, when you're in the game, you have to kind of leave the game to look at this stuff. It's a real shame that when you pick up a file that says confidential on it, you can't actually read it. You know, there's nothing to read physically, which is a shame. You have to kind of leave the VR game to read the file. I think that's a bit of a negative, to be honest. I didn't really care about it the first time through, but the second time through, it kind of mattered to me a bit. But, you know, the lore is still there. You just have to go into the options. Now, if you're a fan of the show, I do believe you will enjoy this game. The gameplay is a little bit lacking, which I'm going to get into in a minute. But as for the 7, you don't really come across any of the 7 apart from Homelander. He's really the only soup that you come across. And you come across him 3 times, I believe is correct. And one of them actually involves some gameplay where he's trying to chase you down with his laser vision. And one of the issues I have with this game, or I did have with this game on Quest 3, is the way that blood goes down on your face. Now on Quest originally, it's been fixed now by the sounds of it, blood was like, it was about 30 centimeters away from your face. It was like wearing a bloody space helmet. It was really weird. They've now fixed it, but on PSVR2 at the moment, because there is an update coming, only the first opening of the game will you experience this weird bloody space helmet, and then after that it kind of looks like you'd expect actually coming down your face on your eyes, which is a good thing. There is all the standard comfort options you would expect, and interestingly, this game is recommended to be played seated. Does it change anything? Not for me personally. I'm quite happy to play some VR games seated, and this is one of them. So now's a good time, I guess, to go more in depth about the graphical comparisons between Quest 3 and PSVR2. Now, they've told me they've improved the Quest 3 version. I haven't seen it, as I said, but on PSVR2, what I saw was definitely better shadows. They are baked in shadows, I believe, but they look definitely better, and what this does, it makes the characters look more closer to like what we saw in Saints and Sinners. So they kind of look more solid now. You know, I wouldn't say realistic, but they look better than they did on Quest 3 originally. It might be better now. I think also the colours look better. And I don't just mean by vibrancy. I mean like gradients of colour. I genuinely think the game does look better on PSVR 2 in general. So that aside, it's time to talk about the issue that I come across. For those of you who don't use smooth turning, this isn't an issue. But if you do use smooth turning, right now, as of today, I believe, because the patch that me and the developers have kind of, I guess, worked on, highlighted, talked about, won't be available for a couple of days. But what was happening was, when you use smooth turning, the game would stagger. It would kind of stutter. And I reported it, and I'm just going to tell you, I'm going to put it up on screen anyway. But basically, they identified the issue. After a few days, a bit of back and forth, trying to figure out how I can prove what I'm seeing, they basically end up identifying the issue and they got a fix. However, it was a fix that may affect several things in rendering. And they still decided to go ahead and release this game today. Personally, I would have liked the game to have been delayed by a couple of days, so it gets in line with the patch, but it's up to them. And yeah, so the jittering patch will be fixed in a couple of days, and they're going to call it the Gamertag VR update. Good, thank you. I appreciate that. But it's good to know that that update is being worked on and it's going to be coming soon. And it will make a big difference, because this game on PSVR 2 is super smooth. I think it's super smooth anyway. I did highlight that when you pick up some items, they kind of drop some frames. It's almost like you've probably played games where you see a character or you see something off in the distance and that runs at a lower frame rate. It does feel like when you're not moving around just using head-based turning, when you grab an item, it kind of stutters a little bit. That does happen. I don't know whether that is part of this patch. It would be cool if it was, but I don't know. But now I need to get into some negatives about the game with all that stuff aside. Unfortunately, I find this game very repetitious, a bit unimaginative, and it's kind of like a corridor simulator game. You only ever go into Vault Tower, get dropped off outside or break into Vault Tower, and the first 2 levels, unfortunately, is not exactly a replica of the first mission, which doesn't help, where you sort of stand there and you think, I've been here before. Like, this is exactly the same place. That's not a good thing in a game. Aside from that, there is some different areas you go in, like basements, and there's bodies, there's lots of other stuff, but primarily you will be just going through corridors, going through vents, hacking terminals like a dummy. You just do this with your hands, and on PSVR 2 you've got to really be forceful. I don't know why. I haven't actually told the developer that. I didn't really figure that bit out till today because I was too busy trying to talk about the graphical problem. And another thing that doesn't really help is the AI. The AI is just dumb. You know, it's really dumb. It's not challenging. And, you know, and I hate to say it, it's quite a mediocre game. I don't know if people who aren't fans of The Boys would pick this up, but if you're not a fan of The Boys, I don't think there's much here apart from the very cool VR telekinesis powers and the laser eyes. That's really good. But outside of that, just purely gameplay, it's not great, you know, and there is definitely still some jank here and there. And I say jank, you know, like frames that seem to be missing, or just a bit of stuttering where like a character moves around, or just stuff that doesn't feel necessarily high quality. But then there's other moments where it does feel high quality. So overall, I can't actually remember what I said last time, but I think I'm going to still say the same thing here, and that is wait for a sale. Okay, so the game apparently is priced $30 or £25, but if you are a PlayStation Plus member, apparently it's $24 or £18. Maybe $20. I'd put it at $20. If it hits $20, I think if you're a fan of the show, you'll enjoy it. So maybe PS Plus members for the $24. If you don't mind spending a little bit extra on the $4 and you're a fan of it, you might enjoy this. But personally, it's not a game I was looking forward to playing again. I think that's quite important to note. When I got the PSVR2 version, the real driving force for me checking this out was the laser eye vision with the eye tracking. And that actually delivered. So there's my review. I think $20, it's okay. $15 to $20 is the right price for me. And since it's not that, I give it a wait for a sale recommendation. Thank you ever so much for watching. Remember to like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.